Díaghuit agus fáilte mór chuig ar géad aigreán sa Strach Comhaltas FleadhFest ó Carlingford. Coming up, we look back at Fleadh Cheoil na hÉireann 2018 and 2019 and chat to Lola Robinson to find out how it all came about. We visit Tullyallen village and chat to Stuart Carlin about his grá for sean-nós singing. We visit Faughart where we find out all about St Brigid's Shrine with Kathleen Rowe. We meet Kathleen and Michael McGlynn from Ceili and Pádraig and Roisin McEnany from Anniegasson to find out about their passion for Irish dancing. And finally, we meet Pádraig Donnellan, who's going to tell us all about the Shimsa and Táin Ceili band. Seo é FleadhFest chun Louth. Before we head off to Drogheda to take a look back at Fleadh Cheoil na hÉireann, Michael, Caithfhiorlach Bord chun Louth. Can you tell us how this all came about?
Hello, Ciara. As Chairman of Bord chun Louth, it is my pleasure to introduce you to County Louth's contribution to the FleadhFest initiative being rolled out by Comhaltas Tullyallen. Each county was given the opportunity of providing 4 half-hour programmes showcasing the music, culture and historical interests of their particular county. In Louth, we have a wealth of talent, history and folklore to choose from. In that context, we appointed a committee under the auspices of the County Board to work together to put a plan of action in place as to how we would proceed. I am happy to say that this goal has been achieved and the result of this collaboration can be seen in the content of each of these 4 programmes. The idea for this initiative came about as a response to the fact that the county, provincial and Fleadh Cheoil na hÉireann will not take place for the 2nd year running. From a positive perspective, this sad fact allowed us the opportunity to put together a celebration of tradition, culture and history of our county, which will be available long into the future for many years to come, giving people the opportunity of enjoying the content of these programmes through the media of YouTube. I am proud to be associated with this venture and I thank all involved who worked diligently and cohesively to ensure the end result.
Gur míle maith agat, Michael. And on that note, we're off to Drogheda to take a look back at Fleadh Cheoil na hÉireann. We had Fleadh Cheoil na hÉireann here in Drogheda in 2018 and 2019 and what a huge success that it was. But I'm sure that there was an awful lot of work involved in bringing it to the town. So can you give us a little bit of the history behind bringing Fleadh Cheoil na hÉireann to Drogheda?
The Fleadh coming to Drogheda started in one way in 2010 when we ran the Leinster Fleadh in Dunleer. And 2 of the people who were very involved in the organising of that was my husband Paddy Brannigan and the late John Watts. And they said after that they would love to bring the All-Ireland Fleadh to Drogheda. In 2011, RTE did a programme called Local Heroes here in Drogheda with the late Fergal Quinn. And as a result of that, I got a phone call in January of 2012 from Rory Scott, who was then manager of the D Hotel here in Drogheda. Rory wanted to know how you would go about bringing the Fleadh to Drogheda, so I explained to him that it was a Comhaltas event and that Comhaltas was at the heart of the Fleadh. He then got together a committee of young local business people really with various interests throughout the town. It was Eddie Phelan, Pádraig Kearns, Karen Devine, and we also had Frank Marr and Caroline Kavanagh there, as well as Brian Harton from the Arts Council in County Louth. together with that group and with our own members of Comhaltas, particularly John, Paddy, Noel Bow and myself, we formed the first Fleadh committee, I suppose, with the intention of bringing the Fleadh to Drogheda. It took us 7.5 years from that date until the end of the 2019 Fleadh, but it was a wonderful experience right along the way.
7.5 years is a very, very long time for that bid process. I'm sure there were an awful lot of things and different events that you put on here in Drogheda and the surrounding area between those years. So can you talk a little bit about what went on within the town?
Well, we did a lot of things. First of all, we had to do, as Rory called it, the Comhaltasification of Drogheda. We had two purposes. We had to sell Drogheda to Comhaltas headquarters, and we also had to sell Comhaltas to Drogheda, because while we had a branch from 1969 in the town, we wouldn't have been as active, I suppose, as we would have liked to have been. So during those intervening years, we did things called Fleadh Factor, where we got 6 people from local businesses, and they learned different instruments and singing, and we had a competition at the end of that year. On the following year, we did Ceili House from the Highlands Gallery, and we also did Fleadh Street, where the Bun Cushta of Comhaltas, that's the main organising committee of Comhaltas, came to visit the town to see the facilities that we had to offer for the Fleadh, and that was a fantastic success. We turned Lauren Street into what would be a mini Fleadh for the day.
The County Council was very heavily involved in bringing Fleadh Cheoil to Drogheda as well with the committee. So maybe can you talk us through how that came about and who was involved there?
They were really involved from the very beginning with us, and we were very lucky from that point of view. At that stage, Joan Martin was actually town clerk here in Drogheda, and we had a press launch on the roof of the D Hotel here with Sharon Corr in April 2012, and Joan was there. And from then on we got on very, very, very well. Maybe it's the fact that we were both two women with a lot of things in common, but we were so lucky to have Joan involved, because she took a great personal interest in the Fleadh. We had meetings in the West Court Hotel at 8:30 on Thursday mornings, and Joan would be there with ideas every week, which was absolutely fantastic. So we were really, really blessed to have the County Council involved, because the Fleadh is such a huge event nowadays. We couldn't have done it without them.
The success of Fleadh Cheoil must have been a very proud moment for yourself. Are there any personal highlights that you have from bringing Fleadh Cheoil to Drogheda?
Oh, there were so many. It's very hard to pick a favourite one. I suppose walking onto the stage of the gig rig on the very opening day of the Fleadh in 2018, and Joan said to me, "Well, it's too late to go back now, here we are." And when we walked onto that stage and saw about 15,000 people in Bolton Square, it was just unbelievable. The sun was shining, you couldn't have picked a nicer day. And then we had the President and his wife come on. I had some of my own dancers actually dancing there for a little while in front of him as well. So that was a great experience. Appeals to people of all ages, and there's something in the Fleadh for all ages. I think one of the first things on the first Sunday night of the Fleadh in 2018, I walked across West Street at about 11 o'clock. There were loads of people out playing music on the street, both young and old. And this is very unusual, but because it's a new venue, it was a completely new audience. The Fleadh had never been around this part of the country before, and I think that's the reason why it was so successful here in Drogheda. First of all, our transport system, we're in an ideal location on the northeast coast, and that's probably why we had over 1.25 million people between both years here at the Fleadh. But really and truly, I would do it all again. It was just a fantastic experience. It was wonderful to be involved in it. We lived 24/7, 365 days a year, the Fleadh in our house from January 2012. But yes, it definitely, I would do it all again. I mean, our branch of Comhaltas was founded in 1969, and to think that 50 years later, just 50 yards really from where that branch was founded, we had all these people in the town. Definitely well worth it.
Wow, what an amazing 2 years celebrating Irish music, dance and culture. Next, we're off to Tullyallen to chat to Shannon singer Stuart Carlin.
I have been a wild rover for many's the year, and I spent all my money drinking ale and strong beer. But now for the future I will take better care, in case that misfortune might falter my share. While the roving I'll give it over, wild roving give o'er.
Stuart bhí sé sin aus fad gur míle mágad as sin. How and when did you first get into music?
Probably at a very young age, Ciara, maybe 3-4 years of age. We moved out to Tullyallen in 1982. My granny lived across the field from us, and myself and my sister used to go over the field every Saturday morning down to my grandmother's, and she would teach us songs and play music to us. My granny, she would grow her own rhubarb in the garden, and she'd cook rhubarb and custard for us, and she'd teach us a few lines of a song, and you'd have to go home with your homework and come back the next week, sing your line of your song, and if you knew your line you got your rhubarb and custard, and if you didn't know your line you didn't get your rhubarb and custard, and you didn't get any second chances, so you'd have to come back the following week and sing the line of the song, and then you'd get your rhubarb and custard.
And what was your granny's name?
My granny was Mary Ann Carolyn, ní Usher from Tinure, and the family, the Usher family, my great granddad Patrick Usher Senior, he was recorded way back in 1956 or something for RTE. He when he was 93 years of age. So the song I sang today, The Wild Rover, he was recorded for singing it for RTE way back then. So it's nearly over 100 years the song has been sang in the family. My granny Mary Ann, she was a fantastic concertina player and a renowned traditional singer. And her brother Pap sang with the Emerald Ceili band, and her cousin P. Curran, he also played. So the family have been playing, and then of course the biggest influence is my father, because if it wasn't for him bullying me, I wouldn't be singing at all.
I walked along the river Bine to take the air. I was inclined, Dame Nature looked so gay, and as I walked I chanced to meet the friends.
So your dad was obviously a massive influence for you with music. Do you feel that you were pushed into it, or did you fall in love with the music?
A little bit of both. Like I was in love with it from a very young age, and then I suppose as you're growing older, traditional Irish music wasn't in vogue, if you know what I mean. So I suppose in my mid-teens, Dad would have encouraged me. He would have brought me down to Carberry's, the session on a Wednesday night in Carberry's, and once there, you met some fantastic people. Jerry Cullen, Noel Bailey, Pat Colgan, to name just a few. Paddy Brannigan, Kevin Brannigan, and they were all very, very encouraging, all very generous with their songs and helping you out and doing recordings and sending you recordings and giving you the words of songs and that. So it was Dad, definitely. If it wasn't for Dad, I really probably wouldn't be singing at all. The best, and the words that I've spoken were only in jest, while the roving I'll give it over.
In the day. So how do you see the future of Irish music now?
I think it's the future's bright for traditional Irish music. I think the Fleadh coming to Drogheda in 2018 and 2019, everybody was out, everybody was singing, everybody was playing music. People that you didn't even know maybe sang or played music. And then myself and Dad here in the Morning Star in Tullyallen, we've a session going every Friday night, and we've had some fantastic singers from up and down the country have come in and done guest appearances here for us. So I think going forward, I think traditional Irish music is going to be to the fore,
Well, gur míle maith as sin, Stuart, and I can't wait to join you here for a session in the Morning Star.
And I ne'er will be called, no I'll drove no more.
An amazing family tradition there in Irish music, and gur míle maith Stuart as an éireann all in sin. Now we're off to Fahrt to find out all about St Brigid's Shrine.
We're here at St Brigid's Shrine in Fahrt, where St Brigid was born many centuries ago. And her father was a chieftain, but she was a very popular lady for the poor. In arms, she was more than good. And as the story goes, she was supposed to have pulled out a ray so that she wouldn't be as popular. And that is why the stone is down at Calvary. Now, she was here till she was, I think it was 15 or 16 when she joined the convent in Kildare. But there is great devotion here to St Brigid, especially in the last 20 or 30 years. There came a lot of pilgrims here and a lot of cures down the years. People has great faith. And there was one man in particular, he wasn't well, he had cancer. But he made a great recovery. And he used to come here very regular. And in lieu of that, for Thanksgiving, for what St Brigid did for him, he did this fountain here behind me. The water coming out, that was never there. But that grotto has been there for years. In 1932, when the shrine was built, the Stations of the Cross was up on that small, just each side, so 7 each side. And in 1980s, as far as I know, the Stations was down 7 each side of the road. And all local people donated them. And there's great devotion here with people making the stations still when you don't see them anywhere else. The St Brigid's Cross is supposed to resemble the roads outside the shrine gate. The crosses are made in the school by all the children, very popular, more so than ever in the last 10, 20 years. They're made in a lot of schools. Some people make them for charity, some make them for their own. And everybody comes to the shrine in February, expects to get a cross, maybe 5 or 6 for all their neighbours. And it's a great tradition, and it's supposed to be very lucky, and farmers down the years would put it in their cow sheds to have good luck with the farm animals. Now, I'd advise people that doesn't come to St Brigid's Shrine, there is odd people probably never was here, but I would encourage people to come. It's only 4 miles outside Dundalk. I would say if you come once, you'll be back. It's like people going to Lourdes. People go to Lourdes and they love to go back and back different years. So Fahrt is something similar. And it's here beside us. And as a young girl, a 3-year-old said one time, her aunt was going to Lourdes. And she said, why is she going to Lourdes? And she said she's going to pray. And the wee girl at 3 said, can she not pray at the shrine? And there was something to think about. I often think about the wee girl said.
Át all in an sin agus buchas mór le Dervla Quinn, just 15 years old, for that beautiful harp playing. So now we're going to go to Ceili and Annagassan to meet some very passionate Irish dancers.
would have always danced as a young person. There would always have been Ceili dancing in our local hall. And you were only allowed to go to a Ceili dance then. Not like Michael, we couldn't go to any ballroom dancing. So eventually it stood me in good stead, because whenever our family were at the stage of the youth club and we wanted to introduce the dancing there, we had a good idea of how to start about the dancing. So nights we wouldn't have the numbers that we needed. So we started then to do the solo Shannon steps, and that was just brilliant. Well, I have to say, I did meet my husband Michael on the dance floor, but for a while we had to abandon the dancing because we were having our family.
When I first met Kathleen, it was on the ballroom floor, because my background was in ballroom dancing in Donegal. I would have done an awful lot of the ballroom dancing. And Kathleen danced the ballroom dancing as well. But then I discovered her great interest in Irish dancing. She was originally a Ceili dancer. She learned her Ceili dancing in Cavan. Miss Power was her teacher, and she was a very good dancer. And then we got involved, deeply involved in the set dancing, and got involved in teaching the set dancing together. And then the next interest was the Shannos, which was beautiful, beautiful music, beautiful timing.
The Shannos dancing, the young people just love it. They love the battering feeling, and as well as that, the music. They just love taking the music with them. They're not restricted like you would in the Ceili dancing, where you follow a pattern and you follow a music as well that's created for it. And it's not always traditional music, but the Shannos has to be. It's from the west of Ireland, it's from Connemara, Mayo, Clare, very much in Clare, and Kerry, the Slieve Lucas and all those lovely areas. They do the Shannos dancing, they love it.
Right, I have very fond memories of our time dancing together. We danced all over the world, different places, and danced at competitions and got great enjoyment out of it. But what gives us great enjoyment now is to see the next generation, our own children, dancing, our own children being able to do the Shannos and to do those things that we love to look at.
I guess I started dancing at a very early age. I started around 5. My mother and father always danced a lot. They went to a dance every Sunday night, and my mother would have gone to a Ceili most Friday nights then as well. And she was keen to get us started dancing, so she would have taught us a little bit of dancing at home. And then I started dancing in the Shamrock Hall in Newry with a lady called Mrs. Keenan. And I danced there. It was ordinary solo dancing at the time, and I suppose we had team competitions as well, but I danced with her up until I was about 11, and then of course I went to secondary school and was getting too much hassle from all the boys and stopped dancing then. Connie Ryan was one of the main people in the restoration and the revival of set dancing in Ireland. He travelled all around the country teaching, learning new dances and teaching them. And so we more or less became disciples of him, and we went nearly every workshop that he was doing. He would do a workshop, I suppose, nearly every weekend. So he'd be gone on a Friday evening from Dublin down to Blarney, to Donegal, to Clare, different places all over the country, Portlaoise. And we would, at the time, we would go to one weekend. We would pick a weekend in the month that we would go to and meet lots of people, and we just got really hooked on the dancing. So we've travelled all over the world with set dancing, including one fantastic visit to Dubai, where we danced in the desert And it was a fabulous, Seamus Begley and Steve Cooney. It was an absolutely fabulous experience. But at present now we're teaching classes on Zoom. So one particular Zoom that we had last Saturday, there were over 40 dancers on the Zoom call, and it was capped actually at 40. There were a lot more people who really wanted to get into the class. So we've had to request then, and there's 4 additional classes coming up in the not too distant future. And on that, like, we had people from New Mexico, people from Canada, Chicago, England, the north of Ireland, all over Ireland really. There was one girl on from Japan. It was 2 o'clock in the morning there, but she wasn't going to miss it, like, you know. So there's a great enthusiasm for the dancing, and we're really looking forward to getting back and doing lots of set dancing. And certainly we would see that there's still a great draw for the dancing there, and people are just waiting to get back at it.
A big thank you to the McGlyns and the McEnaneys for sharing their story with us there. And now finally, we're going to hear from Pádraig Donlan, who's going to give us all the history about the Ceili bands here in County Louth. Pádraig, Dundalk is steeped in a rich history of the traditional Ceili band, in particular with the Seamsa and the Tón Ceili bands winning 8 All-Ireland titles over a number of years. Can you talk us through that history?
Dundalk, it has a big reputation for the Ceili bands. Between 1967 and 1990, the 8 All-Ireland titles came to Dundalk with the Seamsa and Tón Ceili band. I suppose the real start of it came when a man from County Sligo, a fiddler and flute player, John Joe Gardner, came to Dundalk and brought with him the traditions that he had been reared with in Sligo. Before that, in the 50s, 60s, there wouldn't have been any great traditional music in Dundalk, but John Joe arrived in town, and in 1956 or 7, around the mid-50s anyhow, a Ceili band was formed, and it was called the Seamsa. Rory Kennedy was heavily involved in running and setting up that band. And I think initially the idea was to send funds and raise funds for the refugees in Hungary in the mid-50s. And then 10 years later, they, I think, thought about competing at Fleadh Cheoil or in the Fleadh and leading into Fleadh Cheoil, and the band competed.
And it's great that we have archive footage and recordings of that Ceili band.
It is great because it's over 50 years ago since that band, the first Seamsa Ceili band, first competed, and longer since they were formed. So to think that we have fairly good quality recordings of that band is great. The first piece is an audio recording of the Seamsa from 1969.
But there was a Seamsa too then, so can you tell me a little bit about that?
The second All-Ireland winning Seamsa Ceili band, I was lucky enough to be a member of that Ceili band, and indeed maybe I could be blamed for, or maybe credited for getting the band back together, because well, I knew Rory Kennedy for years before that, but I came to live in Dundalk in 1985, so every now and again I would wander into Rory's drapery shop down in Clonbrassil Street, and no matter what was going on, the talk would eventually turn to music, and indeed probably end up with Ceili band stuff. So I remember one day saying to him, Rory, what would you think about getting the Seamsa back together to play at the competitions in the Fleadh? And Rory immediately, sure, who would you have? Who would you get to play in it? So I named out a few anyhow, and we left it at that. And maybe 4 or 5 other times I went in again and brought the subject up again. And eventually, now I can't remember how it happened, but Rory did decide, sure, maybe we will. And we got a band together for 1989. So in 1989 we won the All-Ireland, and then of course we had to go and defend it. So in 1990, again in Sligo town, we went and retained the title. So that was the 5th All-Ireland won by the Seamsa.
And it's great that you have footage of that Ceili band competing in 1990.
Yeah, we have actual video coverage of the competition, which Willie Fogarty was very kindly gave to us. Willie is a man who has great experience in Ceili bands himself, winning 3 All-Irelands with the Ormond Ceili band. And he has a wonderful record of band competitions down since back, I think maybe 1990.
More recently, Pádraig, you were involved as a founding member of the Táin Ceili band.
The Táin started around 1994, late 1993 and 94, and there would have been a group of musicians that were very good friends, musical friends, play regularly at sessions around Dundalk then. And one night we were playing and the sound was great, and just somebody said, God, if you put a piano and drums into that mix, it would make a great Ceili band sound. So that's where the Táin Ceili band started. And in 1994 we competed at the Louth Fleadh and won the Leinster Fleadh, and went on to the All-Ireland that year and got second in Clonmel. We continued competing, maybe not taking it as seriously as we should, until 1998 when we won the All-Ireland at Fleadh Cheoil in Ballina. That was our first of the 3 in a row, and in 2000 we won the 3 in a row in Enniscorthy. In the middle of that period we launched our CD, the Táin Ceili band.
Over the years, the band has been broadcast on both national radio and television.
Over the years we have recorded both for television, RT radio and television. We actually launched our CD live on Ceili House from Dundalk here with Kieran Hanrahan, and we have recorded for television programmes Up for the Match, and we did another programme from the civic, the roof of the civic offices in Dublin, and we felt like the Beatles and U2 doing that piece. So yeah, we've had a piece, and actually the last audio or video piece on the band here was recorded and went out live at Fleadh Cheoil here in Drogheda in 2019 for Fleadh TV.
Well, gur míle mágad as sin, Pádraig, and for giving us all that history of the Ceili bands here in Dundalk. Here's to more success in the future.
Listen, when my John thought of us in Strauch,
Well, sin aid on Agran Shut, to Sul Angwer Wintu on Tatnov Osan Clor. But until next time, Slán go fóill.